Hello, Agony Aunties. So this question is, the new year has got me questioning a lot of things, including whether it's worth reaching out to my father, as I haven't spoken to him in years. I'm torn. On one hand, I feel like this could be a chance for healing or closure, but on the other, I'm worried about reopening old wounds or getting hurt again. How do I figure out if reaching out is the right decision? And how can I protect myself emotionally if I do? That is a big question and a hard question.
Yes.
So I'm going to turn it to you first because I don't have any thoughts straight away.
Oh no, well, I have lots of thoughts. And,
Okay.
and my first thought would really be around the expectation you set for yourself if you just choose to reconnect with him. And I think your expectation can't be, oh, he's suddenly going to be a different person. It is extremely unlikely that if you reconnect, he's going to have had this magical transformation and be this dad that you wish and that you long for and that you're grieving that you didn't have. So I think if you decide to reconnect with him, it needs to be with the frame in mind that you're really doing this for you. You're not doing this for him, and you're not doing this with the anticipation that he is going to be different. But what can be different is how you are with him in terms of like the vulnerability that you give him or the power that you give him. I would actually really recommend listening to one of our podcasts that Mum did with Mimi Kwa, which is really a lot about her accepting her dad for who he was, who he is, and the sort of liberation that came for her when she just kind of accepted him. That was like a release. It was like a freedom. That she wasn't sort of willing him to be different in their relationship, and that actually allowed her to have a relationship with him in a way that she wasn't able to do when she really wanted him to be different. And I think that in terms of protecting yourself, I guess that is a risk. If you choose to reconnect with him, that is a risk. But I think, like I said, sort of going in with the expectation of him not being different, and also that there's no obligation to reconnect with him. If it does actually feel like, actually, I think probably what I'm going to get out of this is just being re-hurt, there's not a sort of moral imperative to do something just because society thinks that you should have a relationship with him, or your brother does, or whoever else does. I think it really has to be that you're doing it for yourself and not for another person.
She gives good answers, Em, doesn't
I agree. She does really good answers.
Thanks, guys. Yeah. Just boost my ego. Yeah.
No, it's true, though. I also think, being the death person here, that I don't know how old you are or how old your dad is, but it's very likely he will die before you. Often the children of parents that have been estranged, they actually grieve the relationship they wish they'd had and regret not having tried to rebuild it. So, as an aside, knowing that you have tried one more time and that whatever the outcome is, the outcome might be protective when your dad dies, in that you know that you've done the best you can, given who you are, given who he is, and you're less likely to have regrets.
Interesting. Yeah. Not sure how much more I have to add, but my first thoughts were around why now, being curious for yourself about why is this. I know you mentioned New Year, and this is often a time of reflection, and we also are thinking about family because of Christmas. So I don't know if that's the only reason, or kind of it's not unrelated to what Emily was saying in terms of what's going on for you that makes you want to seek him in this moment. What are you looking for? What are you hoping for? I think it's just worth, in terms of protective factors, if you're not in therapy, it's probably helpful to go to therapy before you reconnect with him, if that's an option for you. Or there's that website Alone Together, which is to support people who have become estranged from their family, that there are probably people there or resources there. Having a space to just check in with yourself, just getting a better sense for yourself about what this is about for you, and why it might be driving in this moment as particularly important. And if so, does that line up with actually reconnecting with him right now? Because I think sometimes when we're having a vulnerable moment or something come up, or sometimes when we've had a bereavement, certain things can happen that could trigger us wanting to reach out. And that can be a really great moment of trigger, but it can also be a vulnerable time when we're kind of in emotional vulnerability or turmoil. So I think even if you don't or not able to have therapy, having other people on your team in terms of protective factors, who else can support you in this moment? Do you have friends? Do you have partners you can talk to before? They can sort of metaphorically hold your hand the first time you see them, check in with afterwards. So you're not
or physically,
like come with
Mm-hmm.
you, all of those things, because anything done on your own is harder than doing it with support.
And the other thing that comes to mind for me is that people who are listening who are estranged from a family member, whether it's a sibling or a parent or even a grandparent, Christmas is, as Soph and Emily said, is a particularly difficult time, but also to kind of normalize it, that 1 in 5 family members are estranged, that 1 in 3 siblings have very distant or are completely estranged relationships. So I think there's often this sense of shame when you're estranged, that there's something wrong with me, that I have failed somehow as a daughter or son or sibling. And, families are really complex, and family systems are multi-generational and very complex. So maybe examine what are all the components that have got to where you are with this family member, which doesn't only just land with you, it lands with many other aspects.
The other thought I had is, if you are struggling with wondering what you do feel, is try writing a letter to him, not one to send, just that you might imagine. You might even put a photo of him if you have one in front of you. What would you like to say? What's the conversation? What's coming up for you when you write that letter? Because I think often you discover things you didn't know you felt when you're writing, that you haven't even let yourself think or put into words before. And I think doing some emotional prep work before entering into this, it will be helpful, getting to know what you actually feel, so that if those feelings come up with them, you're more prepared. If there's hurt, if there's anger, if there's particular incidents, just processing some of that will make you less vulnerable in the moment with them, because you've got a bit more of a handle of what's going on for you before you even get in there, if that's what you decide to do.
And I was thinking about letter too, Soph. But the other thing I was thinking is, if you do meet up, work out with friends where you meet. And I would make it as neutral ground as possible, so that maybe you'd meet outside somewhere in a cafe or going for a walk maybe. What do you think that's a good idea?
I think it's a good idea, because also you want a boundary around it of, okay, let's keep this short.
And
like
easy
we don't
to
need to be
leave.
with each other for hours this first time, and then if we
Toe in
choose
the water. Any other thoughts, anybody?
I mean, only to reiterate that there's no obligation to do this. Like, we've been talking about lots of how to do it, but just to really say that this isn't something you have to do. So it's really to do. I understand your point, Mums, about the regret if, something happens, somebody dies. But even then, I think you'd be grieving a relationship you never really had anyway. Yeah.
And I think that idea of weighing up risks and benefits is a good one, that you can even kind of, with a friend or in a journal, write down what are the risks and actually name them, because naming them tames them. What are the benefits? And then that can help inform the choices that you make. And yeah, I think a no is as valid as a yes. And I think what both Emily and Sophie are saying is about explore your expectations, how you might support yourself, and use that there's a lot of preparation to be done before you make the decision. Don't do it sort of as a reflex, because then you're much more likely to have a kind of outcome that you can live with, whatever the outcome is.
And if you do go and you do get hurt, then people heal. It's not the end of the world. There are ways to support yourself on the other side if it doesn't work out.
So thank you for the question. It's a very vulnerable question. And for everybody who has difficult relationships with their family, do actively look for ways to support yourself and find connection with other people in other ways. so that you feel that you have a sense of belonging. And I really think that love isn't always about blood and DNA. It is about the depth of our connection and the quality of our connection, and that we can choose our family too. And we can make our family from friends if the family we're born into isn't the one that works for us.
And we say this as a family talking together. So I don't know what that's like for you listening.
Good point.
Non-estranged family.
Yeah. So everyone listening, take care of yourselves, and we look forward to connecting with you again soon.